we think about how related Ripple is around the world when we think about them. Following that, we take a close look at some of the most important crypto news right now. And one of the big news stories that happened not long ago was that the ECB, also known as Europe, changed its mind about crypto in a big way. We need to talk about and deal with this, especially when it comes to Ripple. Ripple has a huge name in the EU region, and that's because of all the partnerships and connections they've made over the years. If you don't know about this, stay tuned until the end of the video. Have a lot to talk about. We hope you enjoy the channel. My name is Nick. If you're new to the channel, I hope you'll become a member by the end of this video. Now, let's go back to the beginning of January when we saw that Standard Chartered, a $870 billion asset manager, was going to offer Bitcoin and crypto custody services in Europe. This was a big move, especially for Standard Chartered. A lot of people don't know this, but Standard Chartered has been in the Ripple business for a very long time. In fact, they were one of the first people to invest in Ripple back in 2016. What's funny about this? Even back then, in 2016, almost 10 years ago, they were planning to digitize things. Let's also talk about the fact that they first worked with Ripple in December 2015 on a proof of concept to create the first use of distributed ledger technology to make trade finance invoices safer overall. We still know that Standard Chartered has a strong link to Ripple, even if it's only through Ripple Custody, also known as Medeco. This is with Zodiac Custody. They're still working together in big ways, and I'm still following this. If you do hold XRP, this is still something you need to pay attention to because Ripple Custody is becoming an important part of the whole picture as banks go, on chain. They are also becoming the most important people in tokenization efforts, which means tokenizing accounts and pretty much everything else that a bank holds value. But it all starts with custody, which I've talked about a lot on this channel, but there are more than just Standard Charters, right? The reason is that they are a big player. But MoonPay also joined forces with Ripple in December of last year, right at the end of December. MoonPay also got approval for their MiCA from Dutch officials, which was a big deal. Thanks a lot, Cowboy Crypto. We do have MoonPay, a Ripple partner, get MiCA approved by Dutch officials, making it possible for crypto payment services to work across Europe under the new digital asset system set up by the EU. We can see that announcement right here. That's right, this was a big one. Once more, it was a different blockchain partner. Also, Modular and Ripple announced a strategic agreement in February 2022 to make it easier to send money to the UK and Europe. Once more. Before, Ripple paved the way for the European region when it came to payments and all of the main objective use cases that we talk about on this channel. Their goal is to not only make the Internet of Value a reality, but also to completely change the way payments are made in the future. Besides that, don't forget that Ripple also got the title near the end of 2023. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Ripple has entered the European crypto market on purpose through Ireland's VASP register. Herald is in a good place for Ripple's digital asset services thanks to registry clarity in Ireland. Ripple has carried out a larger global plan that connects continents so that payments can be made across borders. The way they do this is through their service provider for virtual assets. Basically, you need a license or registration in Ireland. This is also done through the Central Bank of Ireland, which is a big plus. And this made it possible for them to go after the EU market in a big way. This also gives some of the relationships they had before a lot more power. For example, the one with Modular to make it possible for these payments to be made in the EU region. Another thing to remember is that Ripple talked about how important MiCA was in the EU and how it was making it possible for institutional usage. As you may remember, we talked a lot about this one back in 2024. This is a big legal change that I think will really make it possible for the US and all of these other countries to follow through. It also speeds things up a lot if you think about it. They do talk about the social services side of things, though. Also, this was a big step toward making rules for crypto and digital assets clearer in general. After talking about that, let's look over here. It's May 18, 2024. By the way, pay attention to the schedule here. Once we get to 2022, we start to hear some pretty big news about the EU market with Ripple. Then, by the end of 2023, they do become VSPs. They then talk about how MiCA is paving the way in April 2024. Then there is May 18, 2024, when Europe will quickly switch to instant payments. This is where the split from the European Commission comes in. People and companies in the EU and the UK are still looking for ways to make instant payments, which they do talk about. The best way to do that is to use tools from the next generation, such as blockchain, crypto, DLT, and so on. We can see that Ripple has always been behind all of this, though. It's pretty crazy, you know? But if we look at what Ripple has been doing for the last few years, or even the last 10 years, we can see that almost everything they talk about or push is the same. It looks like everything is going to work out. One example is that Ripple talked about the SafeCoin race in 2022. We can see now how big the market for safe coins has grown and how everyone wants to make their own. This shows that Ripple was, 2 steps ahead of everyone else. But if we come over here, the 5th of June, again, May of the following year, Ripple works with ClearJunction to improve payments between the UK and EU. The main idea behind this change was to focus on quick payments in Europe, since that's how the EU wants things to go. We even see that the UK is talked about here. We see how many payments are handled and how much money is processed as well. But we can see that Ripple is drawing attention to the fact that the EU and the UK are pretty much ready for fast payments and are speeding up their efforts to do so. Then we see this release, which is strange because it happened only 1 month after the first one. This shows that ClearJunction works well with Ripple. Right from the start, WordGo could handle all of our needs. For example, it could handle GBP and Euro payouts for clients moving money to the UK and Europe. Some of our current clients already have good ties with ClearJunction, and the people who run the company have a lot of experience with cross-border banking and payments. We're happy to have ClearJunction join our network, and we hope this is just the beginning of a long-term relationship. As we look at what's going on, we can see that they are already a big part of these areas, thanks to all the partnerships they have signed. Even though we know how big Ripple is getting, don't just look at them. Look at how big these other companies are that they're working with as well, because it's all part of a big snowball effect. Now, you might be wondering why I'm bringing all of this up. That's because the ECB Europe has now turned around. EU fintechs have a big win. Payment service providers that are not banks, such as payment institutions and e-money institutions, like approved stablecoin issuers, can now directly connect to the Euro system's central bank payment systems, such as SEPA and TIPS. This was announced by the European Central Bank, ECB. So a lot of the relationships that Ripple has, as well as Ripple itself, can now directly connect to the Euro system's central bank payment systems, such as SEPA and TIPS. By the way, if you know the EU market, you should know that almost everyone uses SEPA. This choice, which is based on the instant payments regulation that went into effect earlier this year, can make things more fair by lowering the need to use standard banks for fiat settlements. That would be great to see. And making EU funds more competitive and open to new ideas. Firms can now have settlement accounts, but the ECB makes it clear that central banks will not be able to give accounts that keep client funds safe. Access applications should be able to be sent in during the second quarter of this year in June. Get ready to talk to the central bank of your country in the Euro system. That being said, this is a very important statement from subjective views. Huge win for fintechs. The ECB has decided to let non-bank payment service providers directly connect to Euro system central bank payment systems, such as SEPA and TIPS. This will make EU payments more competitive and open to new ideas by relying less on established banks. In other words, this backs up what Ripple has been doing in the EU for a while now. And what's really strange about this announcement is that it came right after Christine Lagarde, the president of the ECB, said at the